Now let's look at the persons. Persons include natural persons and juridical persons. Natural persons means the individuals, and juridical persons are the persons which are legally incorporated or registered. They are called as juridical persons. So this is the broad classification that we are looking at. And those persons can be classified for corporate tax purpose into exempt persons and taxable persons. Okay, so this is the broad category of the persons that we can see. Now let's look at the exempt persons. These are the category of companies or businesses which will get a benefit of being exempted, which means they don't need to comply with the corporate tax laws like registration, filing, and other things. So these are the 4 categories of exempted persons that are being given in the decree law. Needless to say that government entities and government controlled entities, they fall under exempted persons. Only if they conduct those activities which are actually being mentioned in the particular law under which they have been incorporated. If these government entities and government controlled entities conduct any other commercial activity or a business activity, that particular commercial activity or business activity will be taxed. That should be treated as an independent business, and accounts and books of accounts will be maintained separately for them. And further compliances of corporate taxes should be adhered to for that particular business. So this is with respect to the government entities and government controlled entities. They by default will be considered as exempt persons. The second category of exempt persons are, they will be exempted only if it is notified to Ministry of Finance. There are certain more conditions given to these organizations, and the organizations are which are falling under extractive business of natural resources. All the organizations and businesses which are performing the extractive business of natural resources. Also, the businesses which are still part of this extractive natural resource business, but not directly extracting them. So these organizations will be considered as exempt persons. There are other conditions. One important condition being that they are currently already being paying some tax to each of the emirates, with respect to emirates. Just to tell you guys that currently we have a corporate tax, though it is not called as corporate tax, at emirates level for 2 categories of businesses. One is for the businesses which are engaged in natural resource extraction, and second category is the branches of foreign banks. So these 2 already are being paid the corporate taxes at emirates level. So the logical thing to say here is that since the extractive businesses and non-extractive natural resource businesses, they are already paying corporate tax at emirates level, so they do not want to bring them again into federal corporate tax. So that is the reason they have been given the exempted status. They have to comply with those conditions that are mentioned in the decree law to get this exempted or to continue to have this exempted status. The third category of exempted organizations or persons are the qualifying public benefit entities. These are the entities which are actually conducting some activities which are benefiting the public at large. And they should be mentioned in the cabinet decision of the ministry. That's when they'll get the benefit of exempted persons. The qualifying public benefit entities are for example, are like religious based, social service based, or they're conducting some research. So this kind of activities they are doing, which are primarily incorporated for not profit purpose. So they are only conducting the activities which generally benefit to the public at large at no profit. And they should be part of the cabinet decision mentioned. And the last category of exempt persons are the public pension funds, private pension funds, social security fund, qualifying investment funds, and any other wholly owned and controlled subsidiaries owned by the government entity, government controlled entity, pension funds, and qualifying investment funds. So these are the entities which fall under 4th category of exempted persons, and if they have to apply to the ministry or FTA to get the exempted person status, otherwise they will not get by default. So this is the list of exempted persons which are generally being mentioned, which are mentioned in the decree law. Let's quickly look at the taxable persons. So we have seen who are exempted. Now let's see who will be taxed. Okay, and this is what is generally mentioned as tax base. Broadly, they can be categorized as resident persons and non-resident persons. And resident persons again are classified into juridical persons and natural persons. The juridical persons can be a company which is incorporated in UAE and it has got a recognition or establishment in UAE. Of course, they'll be taxed to corporate tax in UAE in full. Apart from this entities, even free zone entities are also considered as being incorporated in UAE. They'll be considered as resident juridical person and they'll be subject to tax in UAE. Not only these two categories, even the entities which are incorporated outside UAE, but those are effectively controlled and managed from UAE. We'll look into this a little bit more in detail in the future slides. But these entities are not actually being incorporated in UAE. They are incorporated outside UAE, but the business is actually managed and controlled from UAE. Then they will be considered as resident for corporate tax purpose, and they'll be subject to tax in UAE itself. And the second category is natural persons. Natural persons, if they are conducting any businesses, any business income that is related to the business conducted in UAE or business conducted outside UAE, specific or related to the business in UAE, will be subject to tax and corporate tax in the hands of natural persons also. If they mention any other category of persons, they'll also fall under this determination, this resident category to be taxed. Now let's look at the non-resident category of taxable persons. Non-resident persons means the companies which are incorporated outside UAE. So how the tax will be levied on them. So if that particular non-resident person has a permanent establishment in UAE, so which will be considered as permanent establishment, that again we'll see in the future slides. If they have any permanent establishment in UAE, though they are non-residents, but they will be subject to tax in UAE again. And the ministry also has mentioned a nexus. If any non-resident has got any nexus in UAE, the business income relating to that particular nexus will also be subject to tax in UAE. So what is nexus is not defined in the decree law yet, so that we'll have to wait and see in the future decree laws or future decisions from ministry. In addition to this, any non-resident, if they derive any UAE sourced income, that will also be subject to tax. This again we'll discuss in detail in future slides. So this is the broad category of taxable persons, which are into resident and non-residents, and then so forth. So branch being a very common form of business, which has been actually arranged by many of the organizations. I just wanted to touch base on this. Generally, for all the residents, branch is not considered as a separate entity for corporate tax purpose. It is considered as part of the parent or head office. So branch has no separate entity for all the resident juridical persons. So needless to say that any income that you generate from that particular branch will be included in the income of the parent or head office. Okay. So for the branch for corporate tax purpose, there is no separate registration required, and the branches of foreign entities is generally being considered as having a permanent establishment in UAE for that particular non-residents. They want to say that it is not a permanent establishment for them, they have to prove so that it is not a permanent establishment. For the branches of UAE which are situated outside UAE, they are called as foreign branches of UAE businesses. For them, there are two options given. One is that they can include the entire amount of that particular branch as part of the parent company in UAE, and then will be subject to tax in a normal, under normal rules. The second alternative is that the UAE business can elect to exempt that particular branch in total. So either you include the full amount and be subject to tax in UAE, or you completely eliminate or apply for exempt of that particular foreign branch. There are certain other conditions also to be met, then you can do so also. This is a let's quickly go through some of the arrangements that generally we see. with respect to the branches. If a Dubai LLC is there and they have got a branch in free zone, let's say in Adabza. So this free zone operations, where will that be included for the purpose of taxability? It will be included in Dubai LLC. As I mentioned, the branch is part of the parent or head office. So because the Davza branch should be considered as part of the Dubai LLC, which is main, which is parent. So the income of this particular branch will be included in the head office. Let's say that the head office actually is located in free zone and they have a branch in mainland. So we need to think where this Sharjah branch in mainland operations will be included in. Will it be taxed separately in mainland or will it be taxed as part of the free zone head office? The answer is that it will be included as part of the free zone head office because the mainland Sharjah branch is a branch. Only thing that we need to be careful or look at is whether this particular branch, which is mainland, the income of that or profit of that particular branch will be subject to tax at 0% or 9%, or will it be taxed at a normal mainland rates? That's what we need to be decided once we get the further decisions or decrees from the ministry. Let's say that there is a free zone license, but that has actually been managed effectively from mainland. Most of the service oriented free zone licenses, the individuals generally own them. They only own license from a free zone, but they actually manage the business from mainland. So in this scenario, how the tax will be levied? They don't have any branch office in mainland. They only have one license, which is in free zone, but that is actually being managed from mainland. We need to wait and see how this will be implemented in the further decrees. Okay, so this is with respect to the branches. So let's quickly look at what will be taxed in the hands of these persons. So far we have seen who will be taxed. Now we are going to see what in the hands of those people will be taxed. In the case of residents, if it is a juridical person, any income that is derived in UAE will fully be considered for taxation purpose. And any income that is derived from the rest of the world will also be taxed here in UAE in the hands of companies or corporations if that business is managed and controlled fully from UAE. Okay, so total UAE income as well as income from outside UAE, if it is managed effectively from UAE, will be subject to tax in UAE in the hands of resident juridical persons. I mentioned juridical persons means legal persons. What about the income of natural persons? If the income is derived in UAE or from UAE or income is derived from the rest of the world, will be subject to tax only if it is a business income. Okay. So since we are talking about the taxation in the hands of individuals, I also mentioned clearly that the taxation with respect to individuals' income is not fully been mentioned in the decree law, how it will be taxed and all. So we are waiting for the further decrees to be released on this particular topic. But there are certain points which are mentioned in the frequently asked questions by Ministry of Finance. Based on that, I just prepared this, that no salary income and any other income in relation to the employment is not subject to tax. Real estate income in the hands of individuals, if it is sourced out of the personal income, that will not be subject to tax. Returns on investments by an individual, if it is dividend and capital, so that is also not subject to tax as long as this investment is done out of your own personal income. Income earned from bank deposits, something like interest or others, will also be not subject to tax in the hands of individuals. Foreign investors, any dividends they receive, capital gains, interest, royalties, or similar returns, they will also be not subject to tax in UAE. But if any individual has got any freelancer license and they are providing any services as part of the freelance license, they will be subject to tax. Of course, they'll have a base amount of 375,000 subject to 0% and all. But this will be subject to tax in the hands of individuals if they have freelance license.